Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. How quickly we go from early same-day reporting back to next day. I think I want to avoid this in the future. There's no real reason to delay the episode trying to fit everything in. If it's going to be delayed anyway, then I may as well just stick that stuff in the next episode and get them out on time, right? That way people can still act on the time-sensitive issues. I think we'll go with that going forward, so not everything made it into this episode, but there's already a ton of UBI news and more to come. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. Thank you for your support. No new Humanity Forward endorsements today. Can you believe it? We do have a couple of quick Trump items. While I was eating dinner, I watched the John Oliver episode on Trump's border wall. It's not something I've been tracking, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but to sum up the episode, Trump has been taking land from citizens through eminent domain, something his supposedly conservative voters should be outraged over, taking money from middle schools and child care to pay for it, something everyone should be outraged over, and giving it to a criminal construction company to build a wall in the wrong place that can be defeated by a ladder and rope. Oh, and the vast majority of trafficking happens at the ports anyway, as Yang has pointed out before, so the whole wall thing is pretty misguided to begin with. Awesome. Speaking of Trump, a federal judge shut down his attempt to cut food stamps for 700,000 impoverished Americans, so thank goodness there are still good judges out there. Props to District Chief Judge Beryl Howell. Moving on, Yang has long warned us of the decline of local journalism and the detrimental effect of ignorance on democracy, but he didn't warn us about this. As local papers die, fast-growing political propaganda networks, posing as hundreds of local papers, are taking their place. One Republican network utilizing AI and template articles ballooned from roughly 300 sites to nearly 1,300 just between June and October of last year, according to a Times analysis of data collected by the Global Disinformation Index. The network now spans all 50 states, disseminating propaganda on the orders of dozens of conservative think tanks, political operatives, corporate executives, and public relations professionals, according to the Times investigation. Such operations exist for both parties, though more blatantly propagandist on the right, which commissions specific hit pieces on political opponents as opposed to simply a political bent in general reporting, and sometimes give the writers a template article to customize, basically laundering propaganda through various names. In the vein of Fox News, the faux local papers claim to be politically neutral, despite being absurdly obvious in their bias, often reporting purely on one side and ignoring local issues. There is no longer any safe bastion from the manipulation of partisan politics in America, and we need to deal with it before we're no longer able to. Yang is advocating for a bipartisan bill in Congress, the Local Journalism Sustainability Act, which would provide tax credits to local news, though, as far as I can tell, it's very general and with no oversight, potentially funding these very propaganda networks, but I only had time for a cursory overview of the bill. In my opinion, we need something much more robust, like Yang's journalism fellows, where the media being funded would be vetted. Anyway, Yang will be visiting the Talk is Jericho podcast this Wednesday, October 21st. He already visited the Bad Faith podcast to talk Star Trek and UBI. And now let's hit on the UBI stuff. Harvard Magazine put out a brief article on a meta-study of 113 welfare programs over the last 50 years that found the benefit of the programs more than made up for the cost. Welcome to the club, Harvard. Time and time again, research and trials prove that poverty is more expensive to maintain than it is to eliminate. This is just one more proof positive for UBI and the right perspective on funding it. UBI is not a cost. It's giving money directly to the people, so the only question is whether you get more value out of distributing that money as unconditional income to everyone than you were getting out of it before. If you create the money through deficit spending, then the answer is very easy, but the evidence continues to mount that regardless of where the money comes from, you always get more out of it as a UBI, because it eliminates so many inefficient treatment costs of poverty and also grows the consumer-based economy. It's like buying a new car instead of sinking more money into trying to maintain a clunker that needs expensive repairs all the time. UBI gets people out of the potential limiter of poverty, allowing them to contribute more to society. It gets government out of wasteful welfare programs. It improves the cycling of money in the economy, raising GDP, and everyone is better off. It's an investment with a positive return. And more Americans are waking up to that fact. Among the deluge of polls from PRRI's October American Values Survey was a UBI poll which found that 70% of Americans now approve of a guaranteed minimum income. We have achieved a very strong majority of support incredibly quickly. Now all that's left is to achieve a government that will obey the will of the people to pass it. Let's get that Senate flipped and get H.R. 1 passed, people. On that note, FairVote has put out a new brief video arguing for ranked choice voting and explaining how it works and why it works. They also have state groups that you can sign on to join to support the movement for RCV in your own state, which you should absolutely do right now. This is how change happens. Finally, Oregon has started a petition to put a proposal for a $750 a year UBI rebate on the 2022 ballot, and they are starting signature gathering right now. The rebate would be for all residents of over 200 days in the year, funded by a 3% minimum tax on big business. If you live in Oregon, jump on this at the link below. And if you really want to make the dream happen, spread it to everyone you know and take the offer to print out a signature gathering sheet, carry it on you, and solicit some strangers. I mean, not like, you know what I mean. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the UBI investment article, the UBI poll, the propaganda article, the UBI petition, and the RCV state groups. Help recruit other organizations to the cause and get everyone to sign the UBI petition. Flood Congress and Trump with calls, tweets, and letters using the ResistBot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, United Way, or the H3 podcast thread. And don't forget to Yang Daily.